So we have some really interesting people up here today. I'm really excited to get to talk to them in front of you. So I'll be learning as well. This first area is going to be called The Leap. We're going to talk about what you thought about when you were founding, like how long you took, et cetera. So I wanted to start off by just saying, Brooke, why don't you give us like a 3-sentence intro to what your company does, I guess, so people know. And then also, how long would you say you took considering founding your current startup? Was it weeks, months, days?
Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Brooke. I'm the founder of Koval, and we build simulation and observability for voice agents. I was previously at Waymo, where I led our evaluation infrastructure team that did all of our developer tools for launching and running simulations. So essentially what we're doing now for voice, but for self-driving cars. And I was there for most of my career. When I ended up leaving after 5 years, I was kind of knew I wanted to start something, but I wasn't sure exactly where. I knew what we did at Waymo was interesting in some way. You know, like we stored and served a lot of really large data. How do you take that and make configurability really obvious so that you know what you're testing and how you're testing it? How do you build data sets where the examples are really important? But I wasn't exactly sure what part was interesting to the rest of the world. And so then I ended up joining another company as a founding engineer, and very quickly realized that I loved startups and really I knew I wanted to start my own company. I went into this company knowing I wanted to start it and realized that I actually had the idea and the energy and wanted to start it. And so ended up leaving shortly thereafter to start Koval and go all in.
So a bit of time. You spent some time thinking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, feeling it out.
Definitely, I think knew for my whole career I wanted to start a company eventually, and it kind of was like this slow dawning on you. Yeah.
I'm curious to hear, Jordan, how long did you spend considering?
It was a couple of days. I was fired from my last job, and so until I got fired, I had no thoughts of starting a company. And then like the next week, somebody actually said to me like that I was asking for a job. He said, "You shouldn't be asking me what positions I have open. You should be telling me what you want to do." And I'd never thought about my career that way. It's like, what do I want to do versus what is available? And I'm like, all right, I want to build. And so I'm like, maybe I'll hack on this kind of idea that I had kicking around. So kind of thought about that like maybe Wednesday the next week. And then somebody introduced me to a VC on the following Monday. He said he was interested in investing. By Wednesday, I had 5 term sheets. Still didn't even really know that I wanted to start a company. And so it was like the next week, I was like, what am I getting myself into? Because it's just sort of like this, like, I felt like this freight train was about to run over me. And then I'm like, well, like, you know, you got to do something with your life, and you want to get out of bed and like be excited and energized about something. And how do you find that kind of place that you'd want to work and has the right people? And it's like, well, you got to build it. And you know, it may not turn out the way you hoped it to, but at least like you only have yourself to blame if it doesn't.
A repeatable playbook, accidentally.
And Josh, how about you? Your current startup?
Oh, my current startup? I don't know. My co-founder said, "Do you want to start a company?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess. Okay, that's fine. We can do that." My first one was a multi-year process because I was just trying to figure out how to go to my PhD program in philosophy, and I was like, if I don't do this, what will I do? And
so for those of you that don't know, Josh here is a habitual entrepreneur, startup founder. So Josh, was there a moment when you questioned whether your current experience would transfer to your new startup?
I mean, obviously, constantly. Like, if you don't have that doubt, you're going to get in a lot of trouble because the world changes around you, and the habits you developed are no longer well suited, and our world is changing really quickly. It's extremely inconvenient.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Brooke? Same question. Was there a moment when you questioned whether your experience would transfer to your new startup?
Yeah, I think there's always like in big tech where it's like you're working with all of these internal systems that are very custom to those companies. So Google famously has all of its own databases and all of its own compute APIs, all of its own compute infrastructure. And so there is that fear of when you leave, like, well, do I know any tools out there? But what's really nice is that you know all of the big concepts of how things should be built, and then you can just Google Translate things of like, what is Borg for the real world? These types of things. So I think it ends up translating really, really easily, is that you figure out, like, I know I need to set up like a serverless deployment for this. Like, what are the options I have? And it's actually relatively easy to back into that. What's harder is knowing that you need serverless deployment for this.
Right. Okay. So you kind of answered this already a little bit, Jordan, but it was kind of a whirlwind experience. But what personal indicators told you that taking the leap was sustainable for you?
I mean, I think just one of the things about being a startup is like, you kind of need some resilience. You know, I think there's like financial resilience, you know, for a lot of people, it's hard. They have big mortgages, et cetera. You need emotional resilience. You have to you have days where you have to fire co-founders. You have days where stuff isn't working. You have there's just all kinds of things you didn't even expect, like days where your bank evaporates, and all this money that you had, collected and raised, all of a sudden isn't there anymore. And so I was very fortunate, and I'd worked in big tech for a while. I'd had some financial, resilience. I didn't have a big mortgage. My wife doesn't care if we have a lot of money or spend a lot of money. She works at a bookstore, and so it may sound like traditional, but I think a lot of the resilience that I was able to have was because I had somebody who kind of provided he'd come home and she'd talk about books. And if I'd had a rough day, she'd listen, and I didn't have to sort of worry about life, so that I could focus on the startup. I guess not everybody has that, but it's certainly helped.
It's nice to have that support. Yeah. Okay. So, Brooke, how did you determine that you had a specific advantage in the problem space that you were going to found in?
Yeah, I think something that's, or a myth that I think I held in my head and why I didn't start something immediately after leaving, is that you had to have the product envisioned when you leave, and not necessarily there's this problem space that I want to solve for, and I'm going to weave around to find what the answer is to that problem. So it doesn't have to be I think the story of Uber, where it's I have this app and it's a novel idea that no one has ever heard of. I think especially in B2B software, it's a lot more about how do you find a problem space and then drill down on a very specific part of that problem space and solve it really well. And so that looks a lot more like an iterative, you keep peeling back layers of the onion and solving more and more specific needs. So that was, I think, my slow realization, is realizing I knew this problem space really well, where self-driving has been working in it for the last 10 years. All of a sudden voice comes along, it has all the same problems, but no one has more than a year of experience within voice, because basically the technology wasn't there to solve for it yet. So I can apply everything I learned to that new space.
That's great insight, the problem space versus a fully fleshed solution in your head. All right, that's great. Okay, Josh, I can't wait to hear what you say here. If someone today told you they're almost ready to found a startup, what questions would you ask them to test their readiness?
What questions? That's a hard one, because it's really intensely personal. There isn't a list. I would just want to know about them and who they are and what do they want out of life and where are they emotionally and where are they with their family and are they... I mean, I guess there are a few questions. One is, do you like making decisions? Because if you hate making decisions, you do not want to be in the chair where all the decisions end up. And I remember Obama making some comment about the thing about being president is that by the time a decision reaches you, you know it's hard. And so there's going to be a lot of that, and you're going to be working under uncertainty with lack of clarity and imperfect information, and you're basically an ER doc. And ultimately, at some point, if you're lucky enough, people's livelihood is going to depend on these quick decisions. It is worth saying, though, my parents always told me, if you wait until you're ready to have children, you will never have them. And the same is kind of true for a startup. Well, at some point, you're going to be okay, I guess, I'm going to do this. I will say also that if you kind of want to do it and you're not really sure, the thing that I did, the thing that Brooke did, go get a job at an early stage startup, ideally a successful one. If you can pick that, that would be great. And learn the ropes and see what it's like and envision yourself in those shoes. And you might learn it's not for you. And if you think it's exciting, you'll see a lot more about things you do and don't want to do.
Yes, that's really good advice. Feel it out first. Jordan, what was the most helpful founder-to-founder conversation you had leading up to your decision?
So kind of in the middle period where I kind of knew I wanted to build something, I'd asked a founder friend to make an introduction to like the open source maintainers of the thing that I wanted to build on top of, because maybe they'd give me a job. And he said you should totally start a company. He's like, if you even thought about it, like it's, you should definitely do it. He introduced me to the person who was his seed investor, and it was also like, and he was really good at, when things got hard, like he had my back, and there were a bunch of kind of opportunities for him to screw me over, and he didn't. And so I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing, so it was like, absolutely find an investor who everybody's a shark. That's just the name of the game. But maybe they have they're not interested in your kind of eating you particularly. And he also he also came up with the name. So the name Mother Duck came from this one guy, and I thought he was joking because I'm like, you can't name a company Mother Duck, like that's terrible. And he said no, trust me, it's a good name. I'm good at naming things, and the domain name's available, so it worked out.
Both important factors. I will never forget the name of your company if that helps, right? So, yeah. So there's this myth that timing's everything, but timing is a lot, being at the right time for founding the right startup. So were there any timing signals you wish you hadn't missed? And I'm going to open it up. Were there any of you have any timing signals you wish you hadn't missed?
I think on paper, it looks like we had pretty good timing because we started at a time when a bunch of people were building voice agents and there was no solution out there. We were building a solution right at that time and now have been able to grow with a lot of those companies. But I think in practicality, there was no forethought there. We couldn't have known, we couldn't have planned that happened. So I feel like people make up backstories a lot to say oh yes, we kind of saw what was happening and knew that this was going to pan out.
Yeah, I would absolutely second that. If you're good at timing the market, I don't know what you're doing here, but if you're good at timing the market, then definitely go time your startup too. Great.
Yeah, and the timing change that I would make is actually 15 years ago, I almost started a company. I was going to be in the data visualization space, and Tableau had been out for a few years, and I'm like, oh, well, Tableau already solved that problem, and so I'm not going to actually go and start a company. And so I would, if I could go back, I would be I should just do it.
And most of your competition shoots itself in the foot. I think that was really good advice we got from YC is don't obsess over competition that's if there's an incumbent in the space that's really large and taking over the market, that's something to consider. But most of your competition is going to die from giving up or having co-founder issues, or they have life events, or they take a different approach.
Yeah, and absolutely. Companies that look shiny from the outside almost always are a mess inside. And so if you look at other companies, you're like, oh, they got this nailed. Pretty darn good odds they don't.
It's that Mad Men quote, right? I don't think about you at all. So in the earliest phases, you can only do a few things perfect. You talked about this, Josh. You make a lot of decisions. And some you can do exactly how you imagine, and some you can't. So I wanted to ask you, Brooke, was there anything that you spent your do it absolutely right tokens on?
Yeah, I think it's too soon to say. Honestly, I don't know what we've done right yet. So call me back in a few years. I think that we've been very intentional about what problems are we solving for on the engineering side that are building out the best voice agents out there and like really pushing the limits of what autonomy can do within AI right now, versus solving for like integrations and getting people up to speed immediately. So for example, like prompt optimization, or the ability to like auto-generate things like the moment that you log into the app, is less important than saying how can we support like the best voice AI teams out there that are building state-of-the-art systems that are really complicated, and how do we make those even better than they could be, has been where we've been focused. Soon time will tell if that's a good plan.
Crossing my fingers. Josh, how about you?
Well, there's a baseline like don't screw up your legal and your cap table and stuff, but that's that hopefully shouldn't take much of your time and attention. I would guess the one place where you would really want to focus on doing it right is culture and people, because it is the thing that is set in stone the earliest and will have the longest impact. If you survive as a company, it will have the longest impact on what it's like to be at the company, how the company functions, and the culture and people aspect it's a million tiny details, and it happens right away.
Couldn't agree more, yeah. So with that in mind, Jordan, why don't you start us off talking about how you approach adding co-founders?
So first of all, I kind of almost accidentally started a company. So I had nobody that I had talked to about this before, that like as co-founders, and so I was terrified that nobody would want to like join the company or do it with me. So I kind of talked to all like my favorite people that, most of them said no, but you only need a couple that say yes. And some people came out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden we had 11 people. They weren't necessarily all like, they weren't all equal co-founders, but, we had this big kind of team with which we called it like our, starting 11, that we could go and solve problems with. And that gave the confidence that that we were actually going to be able to tackle some of these problems.
And how about you, Brooke? How did you approach adding co-founders?
Well, so I'm actually a solo founder, so yes, I didn't add co-founders, but I think we had an awesome starting team, and so my best friend was like, I'll help you with anything kind of on the side, and then ended up joining full time. I had my really good friend from Waymo ended up joining us. And then a friend of a friend joined as our head of growth, and she had scaled companies before. Kobe had built the same system at Waymo before, and my really good friend was both an incredible engineer and also, I think, like a really good support system and like confidant in decision making. So again, between the four of us, I think have a really solid team.
That's very different, but also very interesting, right? Okay. Again, no proven recipe. Do what works. Josh.
Same question.
No, have you found that there's an ideal configuration for co-founders?
I like two. I've done one. It's incredibly lonely. I've done 3 and more, and it's helpful to have, when you have to make a really hard decision, the more people in the room, the harder it gets. It's wonderful to have a big team of trusted advisors who can give you lots of different perspectives, lots of different bits of insight. But in the end, when you have to make a hard decision, the fewer people, the better, unless it's just on your shoulders. So I'm set on 2.
2 works, yeah. So when disagreements arise, I'll start with you, Jordan. Are there any rituals or processes that you go through to keep aligned with your co-founders?
So that's really hard. I mean, as somebody who was like both, we had 11 co-founders, but then also sort of I was also a solo founder. I didn't really have so people felt like they deserved a seat at the table and should be able to sort of be involved in the decisions, but like you can't involve 11 people in the decisions. And so I screwed it up many times, got people pissed off, and I think we did then develop some kind of decision frameworks, and making it clear about how a decision is being made is also is important. Like, is this something that I'm just going to make the call on? I try not to do that very much. Or is this something that we're all going to discuss and then pick, and it you kind of want to make sure that you can move fast, and so consensus is usually not the best way to do it.
Josh, how about you? Do you have any rituals that you go back to?
I mean, I screw this up constantly. So it's very clear that you need to have ongoing regular communication, not in response to somebody finally being sick of X, Y, or Z and is like, we need to talk. You need ongoing like one-on-one style conversations. At the same time, it's also really easy to have regularly scheduled conversations and you just talk about whatever and you talk about the things that are right in front of you and you don't talk about strategy, or you don't have the more challenging conversations where you're like, how are you feeling? Where are you in your life? How are things sitting with you? And they're hard conversations. They take emotional energy. But this is like any serious and important relationship in your life. They take emotional energy and you have to work on them. And so, yeah, I know we have to do it regularly. I know we have to do it. And I still screw it up. And every once in a while I look up and I'm like, oh shoot, like I have been completely negligent. And then you sit down and you have the conversations and you get back on track.
And Brooke, it might come more naturally with your best friend being in the mix, but do you have something? Do you schedule something? Do you have a ritual that you do when things go wrong and want to talk it out?
Yeah, we're 5 days, 5+ days a week in person. And so I think that makes a huge difference because you see like every single thing that's happening. You can like feel the energy of people in the room when people are frustrated, when people are like tired or super excited, or you feel all of it. So I think that really, really helps for early stage, even like throughout the course of the day. I think also, I mean, we have one-on-ones, but I think just like talking through everything early and often, I think this comes very naturally to me. I think whether you like it or not, I'm going to talk a lot about like how things are going, how things are not going, what's like going well, etc. So I haven't found it particularly challenging to make that known to the team.
Right. Just keeps you in tune with everyone. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so Josh, when did the early stage chaos feel overwhelming for the first time? And
I mean, immediately. In fact, the first time you do anything, you're like, oh, look, I have 300 decisions to make, and I also don't know what I'm doing. And now what? So like, it never goes away. Right? I mean, I had some realization at some point back when I was in really good shape and I was exercising constantly and I kept waiting for the exercise to get easier. And I realized finally it doesn't get easier. Like I get stronger, I get faster, but it doesn't get easier. And the same thing is true for being in a startup. Like maybe you are better at it, but it never gets easy.
Yeah. And so what did you do to get control of it when you felt overwhelmed by the chaos?
It's a technique I learned as a waiter, which is when things are overwhelming and stressful, you just get to work. Because A, you're making progress towards dealing with the situation, and then B, there's that focus on working on it that actually removes the stress, and instead of thinking about the things, you're doing the things. And so for me, it's just like heads down, keep going.
Okay, so this is the last question. I think everyone would like to hear all of you answer it at some point. So what conflicting advice did you receive around fundraising or early growth? I think in your case, I'd rather hear about the early growth since the fundraising part was amazing. And then how did you build your own framework, for your own decision framework for fundraising and early growth? Well, why don't you answer first, Brooke?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, it's easy to look out and copy lots of other people's fundraising styles, but I think being genuine to who you are and what comes naturally to you, like I think there's fundraising that's very like PR heavy, or there's fundraising that's very, social engineering of like, how do you get a lot of buy-in and excitement around your company? Or I think I found myself to be like a very genuine fundraiser where I found it much more natural to just be like, this is what we're building. This is why I'm super excited. And like, I'm excited about it. It's going to be really cool. I think like finding what comes really naturally to you and leaning into that can be really helpful. And not trying to be someone that you're not necessarily.
I think that's a really good one. That's a really great tip. Share your excitement with who you're fundraising with. If you can get them excited, they're more likely to fund you for sure. How about you, Jordan?
So I talked to a bunch of founders, and I was kind of looking for somebody who would just give me the answers. And I think it was discussed a little bit earlier. It's like nobody has the answers, and nobody has the answers for you. As you talk to these like successful founders, and it's like, should we raise a lot or a little? Like they have totally different opinions. Should you raise from the like the highest like prestige VC or the ones that really gets you. Like there is no right answer to that, and there's like amazing founders on either side. I think one of the things that I realized by talking to a bunch of people was that they like understanding what they did is helpful because it gives you sort of a range of things, but then you have to like make your own decisions and build your own framework. Okay, what does it mean for my company? And it helps to understand the way they did it. And that also helps prepare you as a CEO, as a founder, because you're going to have to be making a bunch of decisions where there is no map and nobody's going to tell you what to do. And you still have to figure it out. And, you might make the suboptimal decision, but you got to just, you make it and you make the next one.
How about you, Josh? What's your decision
the thing
framework for fundraising?
The thing that Brooke said that really resonated with me was the other half of it, which was the just be yourself. They'd say, like, don't try to teach a pig to sing. It doesn't work and it annoys the pig. I have my own instincts about how I want to go about things, and I can pretend to be somebody else, and I can pretend to be the, Adam, what's his face, and I have big visions of Mars, and I don't know. Like, that's not me. I'm quiet. I'm an introvert. Like, when we're done here, I'm going to go crawl under a couch for 3 hours and take a nap. And so, like, I'm going to do things the way, and I'm going to hope that matches what the world needs from me. And there's going to be a lot of, humility, and I'm clearly going to listen when the world tells me I'm wrong, but like, I'm not going to go out and try to pretend to be anything other than what I am.
That's really good advice. Be yourself. Well, so that's the end of our questions, but just to kind of summarize some of the things I thought were really, really great. It's check in with people, build your startup with great people, focus on the people first. I like that one a lot. Share your excitement. Also, everyone's going to have a different way of doing your startup, right? Everyone's going to tell you, do this, do this, do this, do this, and figuring out what works for you is the best way to go about it sounds like. And there's a lot of myths around whether you're ready or not. And we heard everyone had a different story about whether they're ready or not, whether it's a day or multiple years. But getting the experience inside a company that does something similar, a startup maybe, is your best bet. Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks so much.